what you just did honors poetry more than it honors me, so thank you so much. I'm so delighted to get to address you tonight, and I thought that I would read from my newest collection, Thrall, which was just released last month. Thrall is very much a book about knowledge, so it seems that it makes sense to read it here. But it's also about the ongoing presence of the past and a meditation on the difficult history of ideas about race across time and space. In it, I examine notions of inherent difference, notions that are manifest in larger public discourses and even in smaller, intimate relations within families. By considering historical figures, photographs, and paintings from the 17th and 18th centuries, religious imagery on altarpieces and in narratives dating back to the 13th century, I try to make sense of our shared history, what we've all inherited from the past, as well as my personal history with my Black mother and white father, a story that is quintessentially American. This has been the most difficult book yet for me to write, but I was reminded this morning in an email by another poet what we have always known, that poetry, whether we are writing it or reading it, helps us to realize the better angels of our nature. And as my father, Eric Trethewey, has said, a generous thought is the idea of justice taking root. Elegy for my father. I think by now the river must be thick with salmon. Late August, I imagine it as it was that morning, drizzle needling the surface, mist at the banks like a net settling around us, everything damp and shining. That morning, awkward and heavy in our hip waders, we stalked into the current and found our places, you upstream a few yards and out far deeper. You must remember how the river seeped in over your boots and you grew heavier with that defeat. All day I kept turning to watch you, how first you mimed our guide's casting, then cast your invisible line, slicing the sky between us. And later, rod in hand, how you tried again and again to find that perfect arc, flight of an insect skimming the river's surface. Perhaps you recall I cast my line and reeled in 2 small trout we could not keep. Because I had to release them, I confess, I thought about the past, working the hooks loose, the fish writhing in my hands, each one slipping away before I could let go. I can tell you now that I tried to take it all in, record it for an elegy I'd write one day when the time came. Your daughter, I was that ruthless. What does it matter if I tell you I learned to be? You kept casting your line, and when it did not come back empty, it was tangled with mine. Some nights, dreaming, I step again into the small boat that carried us out and watch the bank receding, my back to where I know we are headed. This next poem takes as its starting point the Mexican casta paintings from colonial Mexico across the 18th century. These were paintings that represented the mixed blood unions that were taking place in the colony. They began always with the white Spaniard father and were done in series of 16 with all of the different blood mixtures and the various taxonomies created to name the mixed blood children. The paintings always had both parents and then the offspring, as well as those taxonomies right on the painting. If you were born a mixed blood in colonial Mexico, your name was recorded in the book of castas. One of the things that interested me about these paintings, before I realized I was looking at images of my own family and was compelled by them because of that, was the idea in colonial Mexico that indigenous blood over a few generations could be purified to whiteness, but that the taint of African blood was irreversible. This is after a series by Juan Rodriguez Suarez, circa 1715. Taxonomy. 1. De Español y de India produce mestizo. The canvas is a leaden sky behind them, heavy with words, gold letters inscribing an equation of blood. This plus this equals this, as if a contract with nature or a museum label, ethnographic, precise. See how the father's hand beneath its crown of lace curls around his daughter's head. She's nearly fair as he is, calidad. See it in the brooch at her collar, the lace framing her face. An infant, she is borne over the servant's left shoulder, bound to him by a sling, the plain blue cloth knotted at his throat. If the father, his hand on her skull, divines, as the physiognomist does, the mysteries of her character, discursive, legible on her light flesh, in the soft curl of her hair, we cannot know it. So gentle the eye he turns toward her. The mother, glancing sideways toward him, the scarf on her head, white as his face, his powdered wig, gestures with one hand a shape like the letter C. See, she seems to say, what we have made. The servant, still a child, cranes his neck, turns his face up toward all of them. He is dark as history, origin of the word native, the weight of blood, a pale mistress on his back, heavier every year. 2. De Español y Negra produce mulatto. Still, the centuries have not dulled the sullenness of the child's expression. If there is light inside him, it does not shine through the paint that holds his face in profile, his domed forehead, eyes nearly closed beneath a heavy brow. Though inside, the boy's father stands in his cloak and hat. It's as if he's just come in or that he's leaving. We see him transient, rolling a cigarette, myopic, his eyelids drawn against the child passing before him. At the stove, the boy's mother